Alright guys, how's it going? This is James from Butler Farms, and I'm out here in the yard just finishing some things up for the week before my regular work week starts, and just tying some loose ends together. And I got to thinking, in the last video I showed you my version of guerrilla gardening, and for me that's just putting plants where you normally wouldn't find them, putting them where you have the opportunity and where you have the space, whether that be just in a corner somewhere around some other plants, even in places you don't expect that they come up on their own, raised beds, those kind of things. And I got to thinking, you know, there's another thing that I have used for many years that has produced very well for me over time, and that is buckets and containers. And I didn't put that in the last video, but I did want to kind of show you what I got going on with that. Now, with the raised bed, I'm not through with raised beds. The other one, as you saw in the last video, it rotted out. It was time for it to go. It was not in a good place. You know, got to keep the wife happy. She wanted it out of the yard, or at least where, you know, it wasn't seen from the front of the house, and I can understand that. But it was time to move them anyway, so I don't know where those will be, and I don't know what those will look like. I do know that with these heavy clay soils that I have here that I'm trying to improve over time, that it's about the only place I can grow carrots. I like growing my lettuce there simply because it does so well, and then on top of that, I can keep it close to the house, so within a matter of minutes I can go outside and cut and pull a salad right out of the raised bed and not have to go all the way down to the main garden. And to be honest with you, even though the deer and stuff stay out of my main garden, I've never had a lot of luck growing lettuce down there. So, you know, raised beds are a part of the homestead going forward. But here's another idea that you can have. Let me get this turned around where you can see what we got going on here. Now, those of you that have followed my videos know that herbs are one of the things that have really given me fits over the years, and getting them to grow in the ground and getting a stand of them, especially the perennial herbs, it just has not happened. I've tried just about everything I can think of. So one of the ways that I do it is I put them in pots. Now, this on the end over here is lavender, and these three little smaller pots, you can see that's just a leftover flower pot from, I really don't know what came in that. These are some more that I've collected over time that came from nurseries and things like this, and this is cilantro. And so you can see that they're doing well when those came just from little bitty seed, and now you can see that they're really getting after it. And we'll use a lot of that cilantro. As you know, as I've said in one of my other videos, I'm going to try some new salsa this year with my tomatoes and peppers, and try to do some homemade salsa this year. And so that cilantro will be part of that. Now, we have a long growing season here in central Alabama, and so these will stay outside during that time. And if they're still around with me when it starts turning cold in the fall and the winter, I will simply move these inside and see if I can't overwinter them there. Now, as far as what I normally grow in buckets, you can see here's 3 of them right here. Now, in the back in these cups, those are some more pepper plants that I thought I was through putting out all of my extra plants, but those are 3 pretty little pepper plants that I will find a hole somewhere, probably in the ditch bank along the road out there, and give them a shot to produce as well. But as you can see here, these are cat litter boxes that we've either collected, or buckets that we've either collected over the years or have been given to us. And you can see that we have some action going on in them. I don't really remember what squash these are. Probably delicata, Cherokee tan, or Seminole pumpkins. If I had to guess, it would be one of those, or one of the sweet meat pumpkins that I'm trying this year. And I had buckets, I had leftover soil, and that's mixed with my compost, that mix that I put together. And you can see there's I put 2 seeds there, and both of them came up. I was getting to think that these weren't doing anything. You can see the one in the back, but there is another one coming right there. So I'm going to leave it alone and let it come on through. And there's one here. Now I will probably put another seed in the back and see if I can get it to germinate as well. But that's, that's exciting. I was able to get some winter squash off of my buckets last year. We have a horrible time with squash bugs when you plant squash in the ground here. And summer squash or winter squash, I have had a time over the years trying to stay organic and keeping the squash bugs out and keeping them from totally destroying my plants. And one way that I've been able to combat that is to grow my squash in buckets or in raised beds and keep them off of the ground. Now, I will never get the production that I would get out of healthy squash plants in the ground. It's just not going to do it. I've tried it both ways, and I know that. But last year on my squash plants in the buckets, I was able to get anywhere from I guess 5, 6, maybe as some of my better plants, I got 7 or 8 winter squash off of them. And that's not bad. That's not bad production at all. Let me walk around here and show you. Now, these are some more buckets that we have here along the edge of my shop, and you can see that I've got pepper plants. These are some of my leftover pepper plants that were in the shop and had to find a place for them. Just couldn't let them go to waste. There's a tomato plant there. Really don't know what variety it is, but it's out here by itself. Now, I've got some sweet pickle peppers, kind of like the salad peppers, in here. I do have some jalapenos. I do have some baby bells and those kind of things. But look what's happening right here, guys, right there. You see that? Those are peppers, and they're in there. I know it's not picking up really well on camera, but those are peppers that are coming right there on these plants already. So they are doing well. I have a few blooms on mine that are in the ground in the garden, but these seem to be doing well. And one reason for that is these buckets stay so warm here with the heat and the sun that we have, that they're gonna mature at a little bit faster rate. Now, this is one of my buckets that I haven't filled yet. I wanted to show you. I usually always, these are buckets that are just worn out. You can see that this bucket has a crack in it. So as far as being able to use it for what I would normally use a bucket for, even this old Lowe's bucket, you see the big crack across the bottom, that's okay, because all I need it to do is hold soil and be able to keep that plant contained. You can see I have holes drilled in the bottom. Those are 3/8 holes that I've drilled in the bottom, and that's for drainage, so that they're not sitting in water. I also take and drill a hole, at least one about 1 inch up, to relieve some of that as well. Now, when I fill these buckets, I don't put soil all the way to the bottom, and there's several reasons for that. Number one, I don't have that much soil to be able to fill. These are pretty good sized buckets. So I put, I take sticks. You can see them right here on the edge of the woods, and sticks like that are laying right there on the ground. I will take those and break those into pieces that will fit in the bottom of those buckets, and probably the bottom, I don't know, 3 inches, 3 or 4 inches or so, are those sticks kind of crisscrossed on each other. And what that does is several things. Number one, it cuts down on the amount of soil that I have to produce and put into these buckets, so it saves me there. I can do more buckets that way. Number two, it doesn't get as compacted in the bottom, and with that hole that I've got drilled in the side and in the bottom, not only will it allow extra water to drain out so that it's not sitting basically in mud, but it also allows oxygen to come up from the bottom into those roots, because those roots will go all the way to the bottom. This fall, when I dump these out into the compost pile, there will be roots all the way down to the bottom of these buckets. And so they're looking for that oxygen, they're looking for that water, they're looking for those nutrients that are in the soil, and all of that allows that to happen. So I've done it both ways, where I filled the buckets all the way to the bottom with soil, and I'm just going to be honest with you, they didn't do well. They stayed, it was dry as it could be up top, and just almost spongy wet in the bottom, and had a lot of issues with root rot, and my plants thriving and failing and thriving and failing, and it just cut down on the production. So that's one of the other ways that I use things that I have available to me around here. Now, one thing about, if you're going to use containers, this is not a set it and forget it form of gardening. In my main garden, as you know, I do not have access to water down there. I have, unless I run probably about 250 or 300 feet of hose from my house, I have no way to water my garden. And for most of the time, that's okay. Now, there have been some summers where it got so bad and it got so dry that I did have to take water down there to the garden, or risk losing almost my entire garden. But that's probably only happened once. I can't think of twice, but maybe once or twice in the last 10 years or so. So it's, it's in the ground, it's going to hold more moisture. Those roots are deep enough that it's finding what it needs. Now, in these buckets, especially with the heat and the sun that they get sitting out here, you can see they're going to get that morning sun. They get sun all the way through the day, and they finally get a break. The reason that I have them where I do up here at the shop is so that they can finally get a break from that afternoon sun when it's so hot here. It's already behind the trees that is behind me, and so that saves them a little bit. But if you think that you're going to be able to plant buckets and set them out in the sun and forget about them and they'll produce, they will not. I do add a little bit of organic fertilizer to them once, usually during the growing season. But what you've got to pay attention to is keeping the water level somewhat even. You can't do a feast and famine kind of thing where it dries out to basically sawdust, and then you drench them. That will perk them back up, but that back and forth is not going to do well as far as growing produce goes. It just doesn't work. And if you're not careful, you can have a good rainstorm that puts good moisture in these buckets, and this time of year it's still cool enough that will hold them for a week usually. But when it gets in the summer, when these things are actually producing fruit and producing squash or whatever it is that you're growing in them, tomatoes or peppers or whatever the case may be, peppers can withstand it a little bit better, but in a matter of 24 hours here, as hot as it gets, and with the sun baking on the side of these buckets, that bucket will be completely dried out. Now, did the plant get some water from the rain that you get? Sure it did, but you got to stay on top of them. You've got to pay attention to them and watch them, and make sure that if you see them starting to struggle, if you see them starting to wilt, you've got to get them some water. In the same way that I do my watering with my seedlings inside, we're not on well water here, so our water is chlorinated, and I don't want that on my plants, especially if I'm going to add it directly to a plant that is growing produce for me. Chlorine is not really good for plants. So as you've seen before, those red buckets back there, I will fill those up. So I've got 10 gallons of water up here, and if you leave water sitting out, of course I'll move it back in the shade. It gets so hot here that a lot of it will evaporate, but I'm able to have water that if you leave it out for about 24 hours, and I apologize again, as I always have to with this lake here and it being nice outside, they are back and forth. But with the water, if you will leave chlorinated water in that bucket for about 24 hours, that chlorine will dissipate and you won't have to worry about it anymore. So I keep 2 full buckets up here, and if I need to water, then I will immediately go and fill it back up and just leave it sitting out, leave it uncovered, and it will, that chlorine will dissipate, and you won't have to worry about that. So anyway, that's just where I wanted to show you a couple of other little ideas as far as being able to do produce. Some of you, I know that I've shown you my property here, and with the lay of the land here, it is kind of frustrating because I would like to be able to grow massive gardens. I think anybody that does what we do would love to have more space. Now, that does not mean I am not grateful for what I have, because even the places that aren't conducive to putting in a garden, I do have future plans for those, that the lay of the land really doesn't make that big a difference. But there are other ways. Even if you live in an apartment somewhere, if you have a very small little backyard that's not much bigger than the little back stoop or the little back sitting area that you have on the back of the house, you can always find these buckets. You can always find containers. You can buy grow bags that are specifically made for this, and just buy you a couple of seeds, or go by a nursery and buy you a couple of plants that's already ready to go. They're already hardened off. They're ready to put in the soil, and then just pay attention to them. And just give them what they need as they need it, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that you can grow some of your own food, even if you don't have what we've been blessed with here. And we do count it as a blessing, and we don't take that for granted. But you can see that even though we have space to do regular in-ground garden, I don't pass up the opportunity to do raised beds and containers and buckets. Everything's on the table when we're trying to grow our own food. So whatever will put that food on the table and put it into storage for us, we are going to do that. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there, guys. If you don't mind, tell a friend about our channel. Get them over here, get them to subscribe to us. If you haven't subscribed, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would do that right now. And like and share and give us a thumbs up. Every bit of that helps us out here. And until next time, God bless. This is James from Butler Farms, and we'll be seeing you.